What up, motherfucks? It's the hater back again, and I'm upset. All right, I don't even have my headset on because I finished work and I just clicked record. That's how angry I am about what we're gonna talk about today, right? Now, first of all, this is not a Raw review. We're not gonna do a Raw review this week just because of the structure of Hatermania, motherfucks. We're gonna review Raw next week if it's good, you know. But this week, nothing good happened. The only good thing that happened was Edge performing on Raw, actually wrestling on Raw. Now, I just want to say one thing before we talk about the real subject matter here. Edge is back and he's wrestling on Raw. On the other hand, Dean Ambrose, who's like 20 years younger than him, is out there appearing via satellite, coming in and doing one move. All right, this year and like the last few months of last year, Dean Ambrose has wrestled like I think 2 times on TV. All right, so I don't want to hear this nonsense anymore about how AEW is great and about how WWE holds people back. Because apparently, if Dean Ambrose was not held back, he would wrestle once a month. And people would still somehow think that this guy is good, all right? He was clearly the worst guy in the Shield. He was my favorite on the Shield when it started, but when it was all said and done, he revealed his hand. He showed his true colors. He is not good and he is not entertaining. Whereas Edge, right? One of the people in the comments for the last video, for the Royal Rumble review video, motherfucks, one of them said that all I needed to see was Edge to see, I'm paraphrasing, of course, to see how low the level of wrestlers is right now, right? Like Edge comes in, looks like a star, feels like a star, is nearly 50, and you have all these jobbers coming out here like that are half his age and about 1% as exciting as Edge is. So there you have it, right? That was obviously a good thing. Another good thing was Carlito, right? Carlito, who they announced as being 240 pounds, all right? He's clearly jacked. He looks great. He was bigger than everybody except for Jackson Riker. So that was good. You know, I would have liked to see Jackson Riker win a match because Jackson Riker is awesome. But beyond that, I was happy with this. Everything else was trash. All right, Drew McIntyre being betrayed by Sheamus was garbage from beginning to end. All right, I guess this is becoming kind of a quick Raw review. Sheamus betrays Drew McIntyre after Edge insinuates that like Drew McIntyre should watch his back, right? And it's presented as if it's this huge betrayal. I understand that they've been saying for a few weeks now that Sheamus and Drew have been best friends for a long time, but let's be real, there is no precedent in this whatsoever, right? This hasn't been established yet. You know, it hasn't been established well enough. When they were both in the company, Sheamus was a main eventer and Drew McIntyre was getting his ass beat by like Torito or whatever, right? El Torito, El Toro, as I like to call him, right? You know, so like let's not pretend that they've had this like parallel career this entire time. They haven't, all right? They've just switched places. Sheamus is now a jobber. He feels like an undercard wrestler, even though I like Sheamus. And Drew McIntyre is in the main event somehow, right? So Sheamus betraying him is one, not unpredictable. Like everyone knew it was coming, right? As soon as they started saying that they've been best friends, everyone that watched simultaneously had the same thought. Wow, clearly Sheamus is going to betray Drew McIntyre. Obviously, right? Everyone knew this was going to happen. Sheamus has been like kind of like a heel for the last few months anyways, kicking Keith Lee and all other stuff. And then Drew McIntyre's promo after he was betrayed was embarrassing. He pretended as if his own mother had betrayed him, right? He was like, oh, Sheamus. It was so unconvincing. It was garbage, right? And furthermore, the show opened with Drew McIntyre. He got betrayed. And then like after 2 or 3 commercials, the fake Michael Cole says like, oh, we're going to hear from Drew McIntyre. I'm like, dude, it happened today. You know what I'm saying? Why don't we hear about him next week or something, right? You know? So anyways, that's pretty much the pros and cons of Raw, except for one con. Right? But this con is not descriptive of only this episode of Raw. This is a bigger problem that I have kind of addressed in the past in different contexts. The problem is the Fiend, all right? Whoever wrote the character of the Fiend should be fired and blacklisted from any kind of creative writing ever, right? I understand that a lot of people like the Fiend because a lot of people feel that Bray Wyatt is a good wrestler and a good character. And in many ways, I have to agree. Bray Wyatt, I think, is a great wrestler. Like in terms of in-ring, he's great, right? One of my favorite matches in recent history, and this is not even recent, this is like 10 years old, was him versus Daniel Bryan at the Royal Rumble, right? The day where he pretty much was made, right? Where Bray Wyatt was made, he started feuding with Cena, he started becoming like a main eventer kind of, he beat Daniel Bryan in an awesome match, clean, right? So like, I thought that was great. I had a lot of high hopes for this guy, but let's be real. Those high hopes have been dashed They've been dashed by his shitty little like face turn, right? If no one remembers this, because luckily he got injured and it didn't ruin his character immediately, but basically he was going to turn face, right? He was going to turn face, like have the same gimmick and turn face, but I think he got injured and he was put on the shelf. Then he came back as like a kind of like a heel, and then Matt Hardy threw him into the lake of reincarnation, and out he came as a face. And then all of a sudden, Matt Hardy's gone, Bray Wyatt's gone, he comes back as the Fiend, right? So he's kind of this like weird heel, and he has this little children's programming thing, right? Which is another personality of Bray Wyatt. And let's be real, it's not a good one. It's not entertaining, right? Periodically, he'll wrestle as like the children's show Bray Wyatt, and it's not good. Now, instead of doing the right thing and canceling this gimmick entirely and just having him listening to the hater and having him come in, right, with no gimmick. His gimmick is now, I am a badass, right? I'm tired of playing this nonsense, right? Look at me, motherfucks. This should be his gimmick. Look at me. I am a strong guy who is fast and athletic, right? I am what those people pretend to be, you know? I'm not here to screw around anymore. You're not going to see me do these stupid ass taunts middle of a match. I can do the spider walk. No. Next time, I'm going to pick someone up and hit them with like, and don't call it Sister Abigail anymore. Just call it like the spinning reverse STO. I'm going to hit him with a spinning reverse STO or the reverse spinning lariat. Not lariat. What's the word I'm looking for? Flatliner. There you go, cuts. You know, just have him be a serious guy. This was, in my opinion, the only way to salvage him. But because of the many fans on the internet that have no idea what a good character is, right? The Fiend got this huge, like, you know, reaction, right? When the Fiend came out to the same music, just with like a darker voice, slowed down a little bit, right? They were like, this is awesome. He came out with a lantern of Bray Wyatt's head. It was goofy, it was cartoonish, and it was shitty, right? And the Mystique died immediately. He was this unbeatable monster, right? And then Goldberg did exactly what he should have done, and that's completely derailed his momentum, right? And from then, there was no salvaging him. Then he was already established as a joke. And this was further elucidated by WrestleMania last year, where he, quote-unquote, had a match with Cena, right? And he, like, pretty much took Cena out of like, TV for at least a year. You know what I mean? Cena might come back at WrestleMania, I'm sure he will, but he's been gone for a year. For a full year, basically, motherfucks. Only so we can have Bray Wyatt have like basically what amounted to a comedy match of, oh, Cena is Hulk Hogan. Anything can happen in the funhouse, right? This is what we've been reduced to, right? And now with coronavirus, this has opened the door for another slew of nonsense involving the Fiend. First of all, the Randy Orton feud, right? Randy Orton burning the Fiend alive was embarrassing, right? It's so clearly, it was obviously like a mannequin, but that's fine. You know, I understand WWE is going to have these goofy storylines. Oh, Paul Bearer is being buried in concrete. Undertaker has been buried alive. You're going to have these things, right? Oh, Rey Mysterio's eye has been removed from his face, and now like nobody talks about that anymore. Now he has two eyes, right? So I understand that. That's fine. You know, that's actually like one of my fans made that comment. He said in the comments about Rey Mysterio, he was like, I don't know why people are taking this so seriously. He's like, we're willing to suspend our disbelief for someone getting buried alive. And I hate to admit it, he was kind of right. You know what I mean? You suspend your disbelief a little bit in wrestling, right? But there comes a point where it is a collective suspension of disbelief that becomes ridiculous, right? Now that there's no audiences, right? It's easy to say, cut, change Bray Wyatt's body with a mannequin, and take the easy way out, right? You don't have to think creatively on how to put Paul Bearer into this container that's going to fill with concrete and he doesn't get hurt. You know what I mean? And this now has bled. Now that the Fiend is gone, I really hoped that once Randy Orton lit him on fire, this would be the end of the Fiend. I mean, if this can't kill the Fiend, what can, right? And people online already are like, oh, the Fiend is eternal. Like all this goofy shit, oh, the Fiend cannot die, right? And unfortunately, the Fiend clearly has not died because now that torch of shit is being carried by Alexa Bliss. Now, I'm not saying that Alexa Bliss has suffered tremendously from this because Alexa Bliss was already becoming irrelevant, right? She was already going into that Victoria territory when they hired those like 50 new divas back in the day, and Victoria was shuffled back to the undercard of the women's division, like when they had like Candice Michelle and Michelle McCool and these broads. Then they're like, oh, no room for you, Victoria, back to the line, you know? So that's what was happening essentially to Alexa Bliss. Like Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Charlotte came back, Asuka is being pushed again, Becky Lynch eclipsed her. Like that, you know, there was really no room. So now they're trying to make her relevant with this Fiend thing, right? And that's fine, you know. If they did it correctly, that's fine. But last night's match should have, not just match, but last night's presence of Alexa Bliss should have been enough for everyone to shit on this gimmick once and for all. First of all, in the match with Nikki Cross, no one cares about this match, right? Nikki Cross comes out, she's like, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? Like, nobody cares. Like no one cares about the effect that this has had on Nikki Cross. Oh, Nikki Cross lost her best friend. I don't care. Nikki Cross is not compelling enough. You understand me? So that happened, right? And then after that, Nikki Cross loses the match when Alexa Bliss does the Velveteen Dream's signature move as a finisher, the little DDT Sister Abigail thing, right? And but before this, she switches to the Goddess and then back to Playhouse Alexa Bliss. So there's 3 Alexa Blisses now, just like there's 3 Fiends, right? We have regular Alexa Bliss, the Goddess, right, which is comparable to like the normal Bray Wyatt with the hat, the fat one, right? Then we have the Playhouse versions of the 2 characters, right? You know, the Alexa Bliss with the pigtails and the apron. And then we have Dark Alexa Bliss and the Fiend. Like Fiend Alexa Bliss and then like, you know, Fiend Bray Wyatt, right? So there's 3 characters here. Now, in the middle of the match, they pause the match. They pause it. And then the lights go out, I guess. I don't even remember if the lights went out. And Alexa Bliss just looks different. She has like a different appearance. Looks completely different, right? And Nikki Cross is like, oh my God, what's going on, right? And then, to make things worse, Byron Saxton and Samoa Joe are out there being like, I don't know what I've seen. Like, these assholes never know what they've seen, right? It's happening in front of you. Someone yelled, cut. Stop embarrassing yourselves, right? You know what I mean? Like, I understand. You suspend disbelief to a certain amount, right? Undertaker would sometimes make lightning come out of the sky, right? Kane would make fire come out of the turnbuckles. And Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross would have to sell it as if it was something like scarier than it was, right? But nobody pretended that Kane had the power to summon flames, right? Clearly, it was a cue. Kane would do his arm thing, and a guy in the back would push a button, right? And he would do it because Kane told him to, or because whatever. Someone told him to do it, right? It wasn't supposed to be this magic, right? You know, Matt Hardy's teleporting on AEW, and Alexa Bliss is switching costumes mid-match. You know what I mean? This is ridiculous, right? Like, no one can say why this is happening. How is Alexa Bliss making the lights go off and changing in a second, right? You know what I mean? And Samoa Joe is like, oh, I don't know what's happening. And then Tom Phillips, whatever the fuck his name is, New Michael Cole, this guy is, his only contribution to every segment of The Fiend or Alexa Bliss is confusion. He's just like, oh, I don't know what happened. What did we just see? Gee, we saw the same thing we've been seeing for weeks now from Alexa Bliss. In-ring costume changes. This is ridiculous. Someone needs to put a stop to this. And if this wasn't bad enough, because this is tolerable, at the end of the day, it's her feud with Nikki Cross. No one cares about this. This should be on Velocity. They should bring back Velocity just for this. But then in the main event, right, which is after this match, Alexa Bliss is walking down the ramp. Randy Orton walks right past her, which I thought was great, right? Because it signifies to me that Randy Orton has no time for this nonsense, right? Randy Orton is not focused on Edge in what might be their last match. I really hope that it's them at WrestleMania for the reasons that I stated in the previous video, but it is what it is, right? He walks right past her, right? Implying that this is over. It's done. I'm done with you, man. Edge is here now. I don't have to worry about some fat guy in a mask. Edge is here. A real wrestler is here that I can make money with and have matches with, right? And then Edge and Randy Orton have what I consider to be a great Raw match, right? A great Raw main event. You know, they're countering each other's moves. You know what I mean? Edge is pulling out all his moves. He does the anti-venom, which is like his newer move. He does the edge-o-matic, the execution, right? He does everything. Randy Orton gets ready for the RKO, and then what happens? Alexa Bliss appears on the turnbuckle. Todd Phillips, whatever his name is, feigns confusion. Oh, what happened? What did we just see? I'll tell you what you saw. The lights went off, and Alexa Bliss appeared on the turnbuckle. This happens all the time. Nothing about this should surprise anyone. It's like when Bray Wyatt's music would hit, and he'd be like, "Nah!" And then like the little sheep thing would appear, like Eric Rowan wearing a sheep mask, and then like Michael Cole would be like, "Oh, who could this be? Gee, I don't know, stupid. The same guy that came with the same entrance for the last 2 years. Could it be that guy?" Yeah. So that's what happened, right? And then she came out, and this served as a distraction for Randy Orton, which I believe breaks character, because Randy Orton shouldn't be distracted by the same person he just walked past, right? But he's like, what the hell's going on? Turns around, gets speared. Now, the good thing that came from this is Edge won, right? But this, by no means, is the end to the feud, right? Throughout the match, they kept saying, neither man wants to win this by DQ, right? Presumably, or by countout. Presumably, neither man wants to win this like this either, with Alexa Bliss interfering, right? So this feud is definitely far from over. even if it doesn't resume at WrestleMania. Now, the bad thing that happened is that Edge's comeback match on Raw, I believe his first match on Raw in like 10 years or whatever it is, right? Probably longer because he was on SmackDown for a while. And I don't think he had any matches on Raw last year when he came back. His first match on Raw is ruined by the ongoing Fiend storyline, which should interest absolutely no one, right? So think about that. The fans wanting to see the Fiend and pretending the Fiend is a good character have ruined, it, to at least some extent, Edge's return to Monday nights. I cannot tolerate this any longer. I don't know what I'll have to do. Maybe I'll have to go in there and hit Alexa Bliss with a hater driver or something. I don't know. Make up a move called the hater driver and hit them all with it or something. I don't know. But this is ridiculous. This cannot stand. You know what I mean? This is not something that should be tolerated. And it is being tolerated. And it's going to continue happening until the Fiend comes back, where people will pretend that he was great at any point. This is not some great character work either by Alexa Bliss nor by the Fiend. It is not. It's just a guy who doesn't speak and attacks people. That's all it is. It's the same thing as Bray Wyatt, except he doesn't even speak now. It's like Kane. He's basically Kane. Remember when Kane couldn't speak? He's basically that. He's just a guy who doesn't speak and attacks people. That's all he's done for the last 2 years. He's won a title here and there to promote him, but it hasn't worked. Because, like I said in the previous video, WrestleMania comes around and Vince McMahon looks and says, oh, the champion is the Fiend. Who can he fight at WrestleMania for a title? No one. Let's take the title from him and give it to a real wrestler like Goldberg. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm getting at, right? This is not helping Alexa Bliss. This is getting to the point now where questions must be answered. How this is happening needs to be addressed, right? Address it. Say the Fiend has magical powers. Say it. Up until this point, the Fiend is presented as just a split personality of Bray Wyatt. But now he has magical powers. How did this happen, right? When Undertaker summons dirt from like the little crane thing to fill the grave, or when Kane does it, or whatever the case may be, it's implied that there's someone in the back that's pressing the button. But what is implied by Alexa Bliss switching costumes? That there's someone waiting at a certain point to ruin a match? You know what I mean? At least half of these things that I mentioned, the majority of them, like Undertaker, the lights coming off and Undertaker coming in, Undertaker summoning lightning bolts to strike things, Kane summoning the flames. These are things that didn't happen during the match. They're things that happened before or after matches. Or they happened with a clear purpose. Like Undertaker is going to make the lights go off and interfere in the match of two other people, right? They're not techniques used to win the match, right? Because if that were the case, when Kane was feuding with RVD and RVD is about to climb up for the 5-star frog splash, Kane could just summon flames and that'd be the end of that, right? But no, there is a time and place for everything. And now, for some reason, this time and place has melted into one, where Alexa Bliss and The Fiend are having mid-match transformations, stolen from the now stupid concept of Matt Hardy's ultimate deletion nonsense, right? I love that like everybody else. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was hilarious, right? But not anymore, because now it has paved the way for this nonsense, right? The tongue-in-cheek, like Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy, like magical match, basically, that has now turned into like a norm. I see in places, the best cinematic matches, the top 10 cinematic matches. What the hell are you talking about? This is something you should move away from. I understand it's the pandemic, but you should still move away from it. Otherwise, what's the point of having a live show? If you can't do it in a live show, you shouldn't do it at all. You know what I'm saying? That's what I gotta say about that. You have to be able to do it in a live show. Otherwise, it comes off contrived. You know what I mean? Like anyone watching, like no one watching, even a child isn't going to realize that, okay, obviously this is pre-planned. Alexa Bliss was told, stop, we're not recording anymore, right? And then they do it, right? Obviously that match was pre-taped. It was taped like the day before or last week or something, right? They're like, all right, it's a live match. Let's put this on TV now, right? That's all that happened, at least the first half. That's why when the lights go off, the Thunderdome shuts down. You know what I'm saying? So there you have it, motherfuckers. That's what I gotta say about that. This is not good. It is not fun. It is not entertaining. Obviously, the fans watching from the Thunderdome don't get to see what happens in the ring. They watch it on TV like the rest of us, and they react like the rest of us. It's as simple as that, cucks. So there you have it. This needs to end immediately, and I blame the Fiend. I blame the person that came up with the Fiend and the person that thought, well, now we don't have Bray Wyatt. What are we going to do with the Fiend? Oh, gee, I don't know. Let's give it to Alexa Bliss. Why don't you give it to Sin Cara instead? I want to see Sin Cara and Fiend Sin Cara wrestle. It's complete garbage. All right, motherfuckers. See you later, bitches.